I'm going to call the Jobs and Economic Development Policy and Finance Committee together. Seeing how we have a quorum present, I know Representative Gunther has been looking at the minutes to make sure we did this all right. Oh, and would you care to move them?
I would move them.
All those in favor of the minutes as moved, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Minutes are passed. So, we have a full agenda today. And just so you all know, the CLA was trying to get me to spring for something for a treat today, and I told her I had to put it off till Thursday, which would be the last day we could celebrate St. Patrick's Day before we hit. I might have to do something with that. I have an awful lot. I'm going to have a few bills up today. I do. So, my vice chair is here. Would you like to take this chair over here, sir? And I'll go up so you can get over there.
I'm fine over here. Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Pen in your packet. Here's one.
That's the one my friend.
Okay.
We got House File 729. Representative Mahoney, procedures, you ready, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and Committee, I would like to move House File 729 to be held over for the committee. And with that, I will do a little bit of preliminary and give you some of the roadmap that I'm planning on doing with the bill. I have most of the departments here that are affected by this bill, and we have gone over parts of it prior to this. So, kind of a precursor, or a roadmap, so to speak. We are going to not hear from the Housing Finance Agency. We are not going to hear from the Minnesota Tourism Department. There is a section in here that is still being, there's a conversation about, is it in transportation or is it in deed? So we'll hear some brief specifics, but very, very brief about TED. We have the Bureau of Mediation Services. We will not hear from the Board of Accountancy. We will speak to the architect and some of the other stuff. And then Article 2 is the Department of Labor and Industry in this particular bill. And then, but we will skip Article 2 and have deed go directly to its to Article 3, which is the administrative part of it. And in Article 3, the Minnesota Job Creation Fund and the Trade Office and MIF have all been spoken to before. So about the only thing that they need to do, in my opinion, and hopefully we can keep it to that, is just a brief kind of overview of what Article 3 does, which is the MIF, Job Creation Fund, Trade Office, STEP program, and the unemployment insurance tax cut. And then, again, in Article 4 is the TED, and I would ask that the department speak briefly about that. And with that, Mr. Chair, I would ask that the Department of Deed step to the table to tell us this really good budget bill. Oh, and I guess I have an amendment before we get too far along.
Do you want to do that now?
Yeah, I'll get it in the fashion that the author would like, if I could. It's the A1 amendment, and it is on page 17, line 29.
I'll move the A1 amendment.
I will move the A1 amendment, Mr. Chair. And what it does is it basically says that before commencing, I'll just read it. It's very self-explanatory. Before commencement of a plumbing installation to be inspected by the commissioner, the plumbing contractor or registered plumbing employer performing the plumbing work must submit to the commissioner an application for a permit and a permit inspection fees. Essentially, it's doing what we always do. We just require them to pull a permit and have it inspected.
Any discussion on the amendment? Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative Mahoney, how has this changed what we're doing in current language?
Mr. Chair. Mr. Rakowski, would you care to answer that, or did you want to bring down your code people?
We can discuss it when we do our presentations.
Representative Mahoney.
Mr. Chair, Representative Fabian, we'll discuss that whole thing when they do their presentation. It's pretty, in terms of what it does different, I don't really think it does anything different. I think it keeps it moving along. In their presentation, what they're doing is they're changing some of the plumbing fees and some of the way that they do the inspection, not raising or lowering the fees, but what they're doing is making it more market-driven, so it follows it, and they can explain it at that point, because it's a bigger piece of it.
Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I guess just from a process standpoint, it's hard to vote on the amendment. I mean, if we're going to put this into a bill, and I'm not exactly sure. I think you said you're going to lay the bill over. Is that correct?
I am.
Mr.
Mr. Chair, Representative Fabian, if you would like to get this now, we will have Mr.
Please introduce yourself for the record there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm John Rakowski with the Department of Labor and Industry. And when the governor's budget came out initially, there was a drafting error. And so this language corrects the language that the department needs in order to implement our new fee schedule for the plumbing inspections.
Okay.
You okay, Representative Fabian?
Yes, I am. I'll have some questions on this particular section when we get to it in the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further discussion on the A1? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silent. Carried.
Mr. Chair, if I could call down the people from the Department of Labor and Industry, and I certainly hope, we all know that the governor is bringing forth a supplemental budget tomorrow. I hope that there's only a few changes, so the budget will still be primarily relevant tomorrow or after tomorrow. So if I could call
welcome folks down here.
And Mr. Chair.
Yes, Representative.
I'm going to ask the people from DEED, if they want to come down and explain their particular budget. Who would like to come down from DEED to? The commissioner. There you go. She likes this committee. And we like it. No, just the budget.
Introduce yourself, Commissioner, and please proceed.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you for inviting me today. I'm glad to be back. What I'd like to do today is walk you through an overview of DEED's budget, and we do have members of our leadership team here should you have a question on any one specific individual department. Our mission, and you should have a handout.
Commissioner, just say your name into the record real quick, would you please? Thank you.
Katie Clark-Sieben, Commissioner of DEED.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Our mission is to enhance the economic success of individuals, businesses, and communities, and our agency focuses on two primary areas, economic development and workforce development. Of the 1,621 employees at DEED, 62 work in our Economic Development Division, and 1,444 work in our Workforce Development Division, which is primarily federally funded. DEED has over 50 programs, and 71% of DEED's budget is federal dollars. DEED's programs and services are strengthening Minnesota's economy every day. For example, Mary emailed me last week, a Minneapolis resident with a 30-year career. She found herself unemployed for the first time and recently reached out to me to share how DEED's services were critical for her. Once she found herself unemployed, she applied for unemployment insurance benefits and started receiving the benefits. She was selected to participate in the re-employment eligibility assessment session by the Unemployment Insurance Program. Through that session, she was given an orientation to the resource room, the services available at our workforce center, and created a re-employment plan with the help of the dedicated staff at our workforce center. She wrote to me and thanked me for the work the state is doing to provide resources to Minnesotans when they unexpectedly find themselves in midst of a transition. Today, I'll give you an overview of our programs in order of how they appear on the first page of your spreadsheet packet. If you have further questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And as I mentioned, members of the DEED team are here. Also, as we've presented in this committee previously, the governor's budget includes 4 change items from the department's base budget: recapitalizing the Minnesota Investment Fund, creating the Minnesota Job Creation Fund as a needed tool for economic development in our state, expanding the reach of the Minnesota Trade Office, and lowering the unemployment insurance tax rate on employers are all important initiatives to increase Minnesota's competitiveness. These are the governor's new funding priorities. They represent only a portion of the important work the agency does and highlight where our greatest need for new funding is in our agency. So to provide an overview of each of the items listed on your budget sheet, first, business development. Business development representatives and industry specialists are stationed in St. Paul and also regions across the state to provide support to businesses in those regions and helping them to access deed services and promote specific industry sectors where Minnesota has strength and potential for growth. Our community finance team offers grants, loans, and technical assistance for a variety of community and economic development activities, including redevelopment, small cities development with housing and commercial rehabilitation, public infrastructure, contaminated cleanup, transit improvement area designation, and redevelopment near transit ways and public infrastructure financing for economic development projects. Our small business office supports small business by providing timely, accurate, and comprehensive information and assistance on all aspects of the startup, operation, or expansion of a small business in Minnesota. Our business financing programs help companies and communities retain existing jobs and create new high-quality jobs. Not all businesses are eligible for these programs. Qualifying businesses must meet specific job creation and wage goals. Some of our business financing programs focus on targeted regions of the state, on specific industries that show job growth potential, and on targeted population demographics. Our Job Skills Partnership Program acts as a catalyst between business and education in developing cooperative training projects that provide customized new training or retraining for existing employees. Grants are awarded to educational institutions with businesses as partners. All projects must have at least one educational institution and one business working together, and training is customized to address the specific demand for that particular business. Our Minnesota Trade Office promotes and assists in the expansion of exports and foreign direct investment that contribute to the growth of the Minnesota economy. Services are tailored for new exporters as well as experienced international companies and include education and training, information and marketing, and consulting. The office coordinates trade missions to targeted countries and helps foreign companies invest in Minnesota in new business startups or expansions. Our unemployment insurance program provides temporary benefits to qualified persons out of work through no fault of their own. Benefit payments replace part of the income lost while a worker is between jobs. The purpose of the program is to help maintain the economic stability within a community by safeguarding the income and purchasing power of the unemployed worker. The Unemployment Insurance Fund is financed entirely by a special tax paid by employers. In our Workforce Development Division, our adult services offer a variety of services to individuals through career counseling, employment services, job training. They administer a number of programs which are both federally and state funded. As an example, the Dislocated Worker Program provides training and employment services to Minnesotans who are or are about to be unemployed due to layoffs and plant closings. The office provides career counseling, assessment, job placement services, education and training, and job development activities. As an example of state funding uses and cross-agency collaboration, Workforce One is a web-based client management application used by 17 employment and training programs to track services to customers. The application has more than 2,000 users across Minnesota's one-stop network. Workforce One has created through a partnership of 2 Minnesota state agencies, the Department of Human Services and DEED. Our Youth Programs Office is responsible for administering youth employment and training programs statewide. Services are provided through a network of public and private nonprofit youth service providers, workforce centers, and partnerships with local educational agencies. Services include work experience, basic skills training, work-based learning, counseling, mentoring, summer employment, and support services. Youth needs are assessed and used as the basis for designing strategies. Our Disability Determination Services, in accordance with federal law and regulations, determines if Minnesota applicants meet federal criteria for disability cash benefits under Social Security's disability insurance or supplemental income program. The primary customers of DDS are the approximately 50,000 Minnesota residents on a yearly basis who file applications for disability benefits or are reviewed for continuing eligibility for payments. In addition to providing determinations on eligibility for disability payments, the DDS also refers disability applicants who may benefit from rehabilitation services to Rehabilitation Services, State Services for the Blind, and to the Department of Health section of Children with Special Health Needs. Our vocational rehabilitation program assists Minnesotans with significant disabilities to prepare for and find employment. Customers are people whose disabilities cause serious functional limitations in life, specifically in achieving an employment goal. Over 300 vocational rehabilitation counselors, placement counselors, and VR techs work within the Minnesota Workforce Center system to deliver services that include assessment, vocational evaluation, training, rehabilitation counseling, assistive technology, and job placement. Some customers may also receive post-employment assistance. Many of these services are delivered through collaborative partnerships between public and private providers. And our extended employment program provides ongoing employment services to Minnesotans with significant disabilities to maintain and advance in their employment. The program contracts with 32 state-certified community rehabilitation programs that provide the ongoing support to meet the needs of people with disabilities who want to work and employers who need qualified employees. Our independent living program assists Minnesotans with disabilities to live with greater independence, contribute their talents and creativity, expand their options, and secure their basic rights in areas such as housing, transportation, education, and employment. Customers are persons with disabilities who request services to help them live independently in their communities. Services are funded through grants to the 8 community-based nonprofit centers for independent living, which provide advocacy, independent living skills training, peer counseling, support groups, information and referral, transportation assistance, home and work modification, counseling, and many other important services. And finally, State Services for the Blind. Customers seeking to gain or maintain employment receive vocational rehabilitation services from qualified vocational rehabilitation counselors in 11 offices and workforce centers across the state. Services include assessment and counseling, training and adjustment to blindness, use of assistive technology, job-seeking skills, and vocational skills, job placement assistance, and job adaptation assistance. From its communications center, about 13,000 customers per year receive print material in accessible formats, Braille, audio, print, radio, and digital, through state staff and over 650 volunteers. State Services for the Blind also lends and repairs special radio receivers, digital, and cassette players. The center broadcasts a 24-hour radio reading service through a closed-circuit radio network and provides 2 24-hour audio newspaper reading services accessed via the telephone. That is concludes the overview of our budget, and if there are questions, I'd be happy to answer or invite members of our DEED leadership team forward as well.
Representative Gunter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Commissioner, why is DEED exempt for rulemaking for the duties related to the Job Creation Fund?
That is a good question.
Commissioner Shea.
It's on page 25.
I'd like to invite Kevin McKinnon, our Executive Director of Business and Community Development.
The exemption's on 25.14.
State your name for the record, please.
Kevin McKinnon.
And Representative Gunther, do you want to say what
Well, I just,
the question again, if you would?
yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The exemption from rulemaking is rather unique, and I would like to know if there's a reason specifically for doing that. If there is, I might be happy with it. I don't know. I'd like to know what the reason is, and it's something that isn't always often done.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. McKinnon?
Mr. Chair.
Oh, Representative Mahoney?
Representative Gunther, could you point out the page and line? again?
25.12.
Mr. McKinnon?
Kevin McKinnon, Executive Director of Business Community Development at DEED. The reason that we exempted this from rulemaking is that we wanted to get this program up and running as quickly as possible, much like we did our angel tax credit program a few years ago.
Okay.
Representative Gunther?
Thank you. Appreciate that answer.
Further question? Representative Albright?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to follow on then with the question that Representative Gunther posed to you then. I can appreciate the speed with which you want to get this program up and running, but if there are no rules of the road in the stated intent of this section of the policy, it seems that we're not affording the public to understand exactly the purpose for which the program is intended. I'm just wondering if there's an explanation for, in a deeper fashion, for the earlier answer, but also I note that MIF is not exempt from those duties.
Mr. McKinnon?
Mr. Chair, members, MIF is not exempt from that. We have rules that are obviously established around that. From the Job Creation Fund aspect, the way that this is written through the language is essentially what we would be working from, and obviously through the experience that we've had through Job Z and other modifications of that program over the years.
Representative Albright?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So why not use expedited rules then?
Pardon me?
Why not establish expedited rulemaking process?
Mr. McKinnon?
Members, Mr. Chair, members, I think that's a possibility that we could look at. We wanted to move this forward as expeditiously as possible, and we're putting that in there for that purpose.
Just a comment.
Representative Albright?
Then I would presume, by your nodding, that you will coordinate then an expedited rulemaking process in the bill?
Mr. McKinnon?
Mr. Chair, members, we could work within that, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Uglum? Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of line item questions, I guess. One for the Housing Finance Agency. I see that we have $1 million one-time appropriation for temporary rental assistance for felons.
Mr. Chair?
Representative Mahoney?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We're not covering that yet?
Actually, that stuff will be taken out of this bill and moved over to the housing finance area.
Okay.
And be addressed in Representative Clark's housing committee.
All right. So we
frankly,
don't...
I don't really know what that $1 million is for. I didn't focus any time on it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good point.
Further question? Seeing no further questions,
Mr. Chair.
Representative Mahoney?
We have a variety of other groups that have to come up on this particular bill. There's the mediation services, and then there is, that should, I'm sure I'll make a mistake, but at this particular point, I'd like to ask mediation services like to come up and explain. I think they have a $3.5 million ask in this particular application. So,
Very good, very good. Thank you for your testimony, Commissioner. And I have a Joyce Tilson, is that the...
yes.
Please identify yourself for the record and proceed.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Josh Tilson. I'm the Commissioner of the Minnesota Bureau of Mediation Services. Thanks for giving me a chance to come and explain the Bureau of Mediation Services and our budget request today. I'm going to just take a moment to tell you what we do, which is by way of telling you what we're going to do with the money that we've asked to have appropriated, and describe just very briefly the governor's budget request for the Bureau of Mediation Services. So, most people don't know what the BMS is, so I'm going to tell you. BMS is the State Bureau of Mediation Services, and we're responsible for administering the Minnesota labor laws, Minnesota Statute 179 and 179A. Our agency regulates the labor management relations between Minnesota's more than 1,700 public employers, their 260,000 employees, and the unions that represent many of those employees. BMS was created in 1939 to administer the Minnesota Labor Relations Act, which is the law covering only private sector employees and publicly owned hospitals. The PELRA, or Minnesota's Public Employment Labor Law, was adopted in 1971. Prior to that, there was really no public sector bargaining in Minnesota that was sanctioned by law. Our mission today is to promote stable and constructive labor management relations and the use of alternative dispute resolution in public policy disputes other than labor management. BMS is the smallest cabinet-level agency in the state. Just by way of describing what's been happening with us in fiscal year 2002, the BMS budget was about $2,200,000, and in FY12 it was about 1.584, a reduction of about 28% over 10 years. The result of these cuts are that the staff has been reduced from about 18 FTE to about 11 FTEs, including support personnel. So in spite of this, BMS has an outsized impact on government services at all levels, and this is because of the broad scope of our jurisdiction. I had the committee staff pass out this little flyer to you, and I just want to, the reason I'd like to bring it to your attention, BMS has the reason BMS has a disproportionate impact on cost, particularly in local government, but at all levels of government, is because employee costs are a major part of what the state spends its money on. Did everybody get one of these? Maybe my okay. I don't want to be running off on something I didn't show you. So that's what much of what government spends its money on is salaries. I want to just, if you take a look at this, you will see that with really 7 full-time mediators and a couple of part-time mediators, BMS mediates labor disputes at the state executive branch, all the state court system, the K-12, all 340 K-12 schools, all the special boards and commissions, including the Met Council, the Airport Commission, all the public utility boards in Minnesota, the cities, towns, and counties in Minnesota, the University of Minnesota, MnSCU, and all the public hospitals and nursing homes in Minnesota. So while we're not widely known by the public at large, we're pretty well known because we work directly with city councils, county school boards, hospital and public utility boards, and other Minnesota elected leaders throughout Minnesota. And if you've sat on a school board, or if you've sat on a city council or a county board, you've had some occasion to hear about or have interaction with the State Bureau of Mediation Services. Also, most of the state administrators are familiar with us because we help them get their contracts settled. And despite the small size of our agency and the nearly 30% reduction in our staff and the resources we have available, we think we've been doing a good job of saving Minnesota taxpayers money. So what do we deliver for the money? The main thing we do is we prevent strikes. That's our main mission, is to prevent strikes. In FY 2012, there were no strikes in the public sector in Minnesota. Also, at the same time, we have prevented costly arbitrations and litigations. The reported cost of a strike is over $4.5 million. This is based on a federal study that was done in 2005. I'm sure the cost is higher now. We prevent arbitrations and litigations, which cost public employers a minimum of $25,000 every time that they take place, and so we think we pretty much pay for ourselves. Some of the statistics on these are on the other side of this document. Let me just take just a brief moment to describe what we've asked for in our budget, what the governor has recommended. Basically, the governor has recommended the 2012, 11-12 budget allocation was $3.168 million, and the governor has recommended a $3.65 million expenditure for 2014-15. Of this, $100,000 is a one-time expenditure for some technology upgrades. The bulk of the money is dedicated to hiring two additional full-time dispute resolution professionals at a cost of about $382,000. BMS believes that this investment will enable the Bureau to undertake up to 300 more cases a year, and with the savings to state and local government in prevented disputes far outbalancing the cost of the mediators. We'll also be wanting to replace our database and document management system, which is part of a cyclical upgrade. Our current business application is obsolete and no longer supported, and it's required to meet some of our statutory obligations. So that's pretty much my description of what we're doing and what we're asking for.
Thank you, Mr. Tilson.
Happy to stand for questions.
Questions for Mr. Tilson? Seeing none,
Wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Great explanation, sir.
And Representative Mahoney, who else do we have coming to testify?
Well, I believe that covers most of the stuff in the deed budget. We have Dolly to do, and we have, I want to say a few words about TED, transportation, if there's any explanation needed, and then Article 5. So, Article 5, I'll just say that up front while Department of Labor and Industry is coming down. Article 5 repeals Minnesota Science and Technology Authority. That's my bill. That's something that I spent a lot of blood, sweat, and tears on. I was never able to get funding through this legislature or support from governors on this particular item. All the people connected with it have left and gone on to private employment at much more money, unfortunately. And so rather than just keep empty words on the books, and I asked the governor to put it into his bill. I have the commissioner with here at the present time, but I will do a little bit of an overview. Department of Labor and Industry, its total appropriation is $22,866, and this is on page 9. You have the general administration. You have the workers' comp, which dramatically makes up almost. It's $22,866 a year for $43 million somewhere, with my math being not that quick. About $2 million for general services. $42 million for workers' comp, and that's all money that's fee-based and insurance-based. And then they have a little over $1 million, $29,000, $1,029,000 of workforce development monies. That is broken down. Workers' comp on line 10.9 at $10.5 million. You get down to Vinland Center, which is from the workers' comp for rehabilitation, and then labor standards and apprenticeship, which is at approximately $2 million a year to do labor standards, which is prevailing wage, independent contractors, apprentices, and other such things. And I'll let you explain that a little bit more. And then workplace safety and general support. So with that, I would like to turn it over to the Commissioner of the Department of Labor and Industry, Ken Peterson, and let him proceed.
Please identify yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ken Peterson, Commissioner of the Department of Labor and Industry. It's a pleasure being here. Before I quickly go into our budget, we're a regulatory we're predominantly a regulatory agency, and we're mostly fee-funded. or we also get some money from OSHA, the federal government, and fee funded, and a small, less than 1% of our total budget goes to labor standards. That's out of the general fund. At the same time, I want to make it clear that we're, even though we're not general funded, we do take our responsibilities of keeping the department running efficiently as seriously as possible. One of the most important things we've done since I've been there is to inaugurate, along with other parts of the administration, to have Kaizen events, and that is we have a difficult area that may be spending too much money with too many people. We get the group of people working on it, and they spend a day or 2 or 3, sometimes even 4 days, trying to figure out how they can do a process better, how they can do their job better. Then they come back to the report, and then we adopt it. We've had 13 of those so far. We've got 18 more scheduled for this year. And they've had remarkable increases in efficiency for our department, and been able to do literally more with less. I'm very proud of the work that our members of our department have done with it, and I think that the customers of our department are beneficiaries of that. We also do a lot of performance measurements that every quarter we check on how we're doing in various areas, if we're making improvements or not making improvements, what we can do better, what we can do worse. So those are some of the things we try to do as well, as best we can. Even though we're a regulatory agency, we're not subject to the same sort of general fund scrutiny, but we take these responsibilities very seriously, so we try to keep our dollars spent down. And it's been through Republicans and Democratic administrations. We have, I was commissioner of this department in 1988 through 1990, and one division, workers' comp, has 80 fewer employees now than it did then. And I think that's just a testament to the people over time, independent governors, Republican governors that have, and I think under our administration, have tried to keep the number of employees down. With that, I'll go into just I'll quickly run through just the various sections that Chairman Mahoney also hit on, but I'll just quickly reiterate so you understand what we're doing. And I do have this, I think it was passed out to you, that may be simple to read. This is a 4-page document in living color that's headed Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry. And it can, if you have, then quickly go through that. The first item is workers' compensation. We regulate the workers' compensation system, and that's funded by an assessment through the special comp fund on every employer who buys workers' comp insurance is part of what his payments go to. And that funds this division as well as the Workers' Compensation Court of Appeals, as well as the Office of Administrative Hearings, and most importantly, it pays for benefits that existed prior to 1995 when the law was changed, supplementary benefits and second injury benefits, which are still owed, which is the largest single expenditure we have in our department, but over time that'll decrease. I presume by 2040, 2045, there'll be no more payments, but right now it's the largest single portion of what we do, just send out those checks. The next item on this thing is Minnesota OSHA, and that's 2 parts. Minnesota OSHA has a compliance section, and they're the people who go out and try to enforce job safety regulations in the workplace. Then we have OSHA consultation, which is one of the best deals for Minnesotans I think we have. There you can call up and get, business can call up, particularly small business, less than 250 employees, can call up and get a safety inspection and told what exactly you can do better in your workplace, how you can avoid OSHA fines if, in fact, you get one, if you get an inspection. And so I encourage any of you who have small businesses that are concerned about safety on the job to contact me or to contact OSHA consultation. We'll get somebody out there. Really help. It really is a big help. And also they can't tell OSHA compliance about the wall between them, so they can't tell OSHA compliance they've even been there. Labor standards, as Chairman Mahoney said, handles minimum wage, child labor, prevailing wage, wages and hours, make sure people pay their checks on time, the people leaving jobs get their payments, and that's funded out of the general fund. Our apprenticeship section is funded out of workforce development funds. There's 11 people, and that regulates the registered apprentices in the state. Construction codes and licensing is the area we have most of our change items come from that we're talking about. The construction codes and licensing is a product of consolidation in 2005 under Governor Pawlenty, when we brought together the plumbing board, the electricians board, the people regulating pipe fitters, and high-pressure piping and boilers and several other fields as well, and also do the building codes. And it's all under one head, and that's all fee-funded, too. It's all in one division. And that's funded by fees, as I said. And then our final division is the newest division we have in our department. It only has one employee, and it's called the Office of Combative Sports, and that regulates mixed martial arts and boxing in the state of Minnesota. And we also have a change item from there. But I'll quickly go into our change items. I know you've got a full agenda, so I'll quickly go through those, or not as quickly as you want me to, and discuss them with you. The first one we have is our child labor initiative. This is one that would come out of the general fund. We're asking for $300,000 with a biennium, or $150,000 per year, and that'd fund a staff person to work on a child labor initiative. This came out of, like 2 or 3 years ago. We had a 17-year-old kid working at the Cirrus airplane manufacturing plant in Duluth, and it was just bad judgment, just being, I don't know. I was 17 years old. I've had kids with 17-year-olds, and I know 17-year-olds aren't the brightest people in the world. They make errors in judgment. And unfortunately, this guy, he was killed working in the plant, and he was suffocated through just a terrible accident. We want to do in our child labor. We have directed OSHA activities towards helping out child labor. We want to have someone to go out and talk to employers and schools and young people, and just talk to them about how they can do things better in their workplace and be more careful and try to avoid these kind of accidents. We have about 100 accidents a year, and sadly enough, a couple deaths that hopefully we can help offset that. So that's our child labor initiative. We are asking for $150,000 per year in doing that. And it'll be a targeted effort, trying to hit at areas where you have more young people are working. The next on the list here, I don't know if it's the same list you have, but on this sheet, it's on the page 4 on this sheet here, the next one we have is our Office of Combative Sports. And we're asking here for some fee increases for the people who are registered in combative sports. And the problem is, this is it's a fee-funded group, and it hasn't generated the proper fees in the past. It was given to our department to try to make it work properly last legislative session, so as of July 1st it became part of our department. And we looked at it, and I think we're doing a good job. We've cut a lot of expenses. At the same time, we still need more money. So we have gone through our advisory board and talked to a lot of people in the I suppose you call it the fight community, and asked them for increased fees, and so we are increasing the fees.
Representative Gunter, I have a question here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I still feel a little guilty about that, by the way, Mr. Commissioner, but I have heard nothing but good, positive things from the way you've handled that commission, and I know the fees were under what they needed to break even. And again, I think you're doing a great job. The state of Minnesota is not going to have any lawsuits against them because of mismatched fights and stuff like that. And there's 7 different fight venues that are under this, and it's a great job.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Gunther, thank you very much. I appreciate it. We are, when you saw that we got that, Representative Gunther, back in May of last year, I wished you nothing but ruin and perdition. However, it's gotten better, and I think we're doing a good job. And I've started to. I've learned a lot about the area and met some very dynamic and a great group of people that are very interested in these activities.
Thank you.
Please proceed, Commissioner.
Some of the fee increase would be for things. We license a wide variety of people: referees, timekeepers, doctors, fighters, promoters, and it would just be a variety of fee increases for them. I can certainly go into details if you want them later, but there will be just a variety of fee increases that we think will make a budget around $125,000 per year that will allow us to operate successfully. The next one is the next one are 2 fee restructurings. The first one is elevator inspection fee adjustment. And here, what we're trying to do, as I said earlier, we put a group of different inspection groups or inspection facilities, licensing facilities into one body or into one unit, one governmental unit in 2005. And over time, we've tried to make sure that the fees we charge properly cover the cost. And so we're trying to do here from the elevator inspection fee adjustment is do just that. Right now, there's a cap of $1,000 that we can charge for elevator fee inspections. What we'd like to do is simply remove that cap and then charge per elevator. And so each inspection is covered by the cost of that inspection. Right now, you can have too many. You can have buildings that have a lot more elevators that are being subsidized by smaller facilities. So just raising the ones with 1 or 2 elevators going up, and those with 20 or 30 elevators, their prices are going down. So we just want to raise that. And the plumbing inspection fee is also another restructuring. Here, the state or our department regulates state-owned and state-licensed facilities. That ranges from nursing homes, hospitals, schools, dialysis centers, just a number like that. Currently, there's a cap of $1,800 on any one facility, and so what happens then, once again, the smaller facilities with only a few things to be inspected end up paying more. Right now, they're paying. You only have one. They're called. The current unit we use is called drainage fixture unit. And if you only have one drainage fixture unit, say you're a dialysis center, you're putting in a bathroom, or you're putting in a sink, and you're charged $325. What we'd like to do is drop that so you'd be one permit fee for $100 and then $25 per fixture. So that way it'd be $125 for if you're just putting in one unit, and it'd go up $25 per unit after that. So we think it covers costs. And that's our whole idea, is to try to cover costs. We shouldn't have false subsidies going on in this field. And our next area that we'd like to see a change is a plumbing plan review. We do plan reviews also for public buildings. And right now we have, if you pay double the fee, you get to have your plan reviewed quicker. So we call that the Lexus lane. You go up faster, you go ahead of other people. If you don't pay, so if I don't know, Representative Mahoney pays his regular fee. I pay double that fee. My facility is going to go ahead of his facility. It's going to take him longer. So we'd like to, and we do guarantee for those people that pay the extra fee that they get their plan reviewed in 15 days. What we'd like to do is just tell everybody they're getting their plan reviewed in 15 days. And that we've added a couple more people. We've also got an RFP out to add an engineering firm. That during peak periods, we would send the plans out to them to review. So we do away with the so-called Lexus lane, the double fee. Everybody pays the same fee, and we just handle it in order as it comes in, as each plan comes in. We think that's a more fair way of doing it. The government shouldn't be in that kind of business, at least for that sort of thing. We don't like it. I think it works better that way. Finally, our final change is one that really won't affect too many projects. We may affect one or two. And this is for a wind turbine inspection fee alternative. If we have a major wind project, say with more than 20 or 30 turbines, right now we go out there and we inspect each one very closely. However, they're all the same. So what we'd like to do is look at their plans, then okay the plans, and then go out and look at each one, but don't give the same scrutiny we do now, and that would allow us to reduce the fees by substantially less than we're doing now. And so those are our change items, Mr. Chairman. I would like to have, by solicitor support, like to have it. Thank you.
Question for Commissioner Peterson. Representative Muller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Peterson, I realize that when you were 17, you're forgiven, but what's your excuse now?
That's why, Mr. Chairman, Representative Mulray, that's why I became a lawyer, because I couldn't be trusted in the workplace.
Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner, for being here. on the little handout that you have at the top of the third page, you talk about the child labor initiative. Can you give me some details on how you're going to target outreach to children, parents, schools, and employers?
Commissioner.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Fabian, what we're going to do is look at the sectors where employment's the highest of children, first of all. It's the restaurant industry, and work with the trade associations, with those groups, and then go talk to them, see what we can do, and then try to get access to as many restaurants as we can. Then work with schools and other places. Just try to work with as many places and just talk to them about job safety. Let them know what the rules of what child labor rules are, when they can work, those hours, that sort of thing.
Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, do you have any? I mean, I appreciate the, the fact that a young guy was killed up in the Duluth area, I believe you said. But do you have any data that reflects what type of injuries are occurring now? I mean, what are we trying to prevent?
Commissioner Peterson.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Fabian, we're trying to prevent injuries. We have about 100 injuries a year on areas which we regulate. That does not cover farm injuries and that sort of thing, which we will not be covering. They're kind of in another place. We'll put that off to the side. But typically, we have a variety of serious back injuries, several fractures, that sort of thing, as well as less serious accidents. We do think that, and then we do know in our workers' comp research, we know that workers between the ages of 18 and 25 have the highest number of accidents of any age group. And as you get older, you have fewer accidents. We think it's because of more judgment. We just would like to get those people, as they're entering the workforce, to let them know the importance of safety, let them importance to know when to go talk to your boss. If you don't know how to do something, go talk to your boss. Or talk to a colleague on the job, to another kid or another employer to find out how to do something right. Just trying to get those sort of messages across to young workers.
Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, Commissioner Peterson, I guess, and I appreciate what you're trying to do, but there's a part of me that is concerned about. I was home last weekend and I had some town halls and so forth, and one of the people that I talked to owned a small business, grocery store, and talks about summer employment and young kids that come into work in their places, and there's so many things that they already can't do. That you talked about being 17 when you were 15 and I was 15 and 16. Those are the things that we just took for granted. So, for example, at what age can a young employee start climbing on a stepladder in a grocery store to maybe replace a light bulb or put some items on a shelf?
Mr. Chairman, Representative, I don't know the answer to that question. I just don't know. I mean, we're not adding any new regulations. We're trying to tell people this is the things you got to be watching for. We have no intention of adding any new regulations, any rules, or coming back in next year and say we got to crack down on stepladders and children. We're not going to do that. What we are trying to do is just tell people what the things they should be watching out for, some of the problems that young workers encounter in the job.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And that was going to be my next question. You anticipated my question, I hope, anyway. I'll give you credit for that because I just don't need to see any more rules and regulations on our small businesses. Thank you.
Representative Fabian, we'll come up with a common sense rule here one of these days. So we're working on it.
The best way to do that, Mr. Chair, would be to repeal some rules if we could.
Well, Mr. Chair.
Representative Mahoney.
Representative Fabian, why don't you bring forth a bill that repeals as many laws as you want, whether they're child labor laws or worker safety laws? I'd love to have a hearing on that particular one in this committee.
Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Being new to this committee and so forth, Mr. Chair, next year being a policy year, let's tackle that. Okay?
That would be wonderful. I'll wait for your bill to repeal those laws.
Thank you, Representative Mahoney and Representative Fabian. Any other? Representative Uglum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Peterson, on your labor standards division, you got 11 full-time employees and a budget of $856,000. That comes out to about $86,000 a piece. Apprenticeship, 6 full-time equivalents and 872 comes out to $145,000 a piece. Now I understand that's just a snapshot and that's difficult, but but could you explain to me why there's such a significant difference between those two divisions and the employee costs there?
Commissioner Peters.
Mr. Chair?
Representative Mahoney.
I could tell you, having been an apprentice, apprentices are an awful lot harder to handle than anybody else.
I can believe that. Yeah.
Commissioner.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Bugum, what I expect, I haven't looked at that closely, but I can tell you this, that the people in the apprenticeship division are more senior, they're older people, they're probably getting paid more, and they're also traveling around the state a lot more. Most of our people in our labor standards divisions are working in the office. We get something like 17,000 phone calls, 3,000 emails a year, 20,000, just people calling about wages, calling about how back pay, that sort of thing. That's the people in labor standards do. The people in apprenticeship have to deal with more. I hate this phrase, but I heard this, that higher order thinking or something. They're the ones who got to go out and work with employers and employees, setting up an apprenticeship program, make sure it works, make sure it complies with various rules, that sort of thing. So I expect is they're probably getting paid more.
Mr. Commissioner?
Representative Mahoney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Uglum. As an apprentice, I had to get 10,000 hours, and I had to document them. I had to document them in 15 to 20 different areas, and they had to make sure I was telling the truth. They had to, beyond just reading my writing, they had to actually spot check and call employers and say, could you check your records to see that Tim Mahoney was working for you? He says he was working on high-pressure steam for 600 hours. Could you check that? And then they have to track those people down. I suspect there's a little bit more keeping track of the apprentices.
With Representative Uglum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I can understand it a little clearer now, the different scope of the needs there and everything. So thank you.
And with that, did you have a comment, Commissioner Peterson? We got one more testifier to get up here.
I'm done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Representative Mahoney.
Mr. Chair, and I believe I have the Workers' Comp Court of Appeals Chief Judge here, and he wanted to say a few words about his budget.
Please, I have Gary Hall is the name I have here.
Or,
Doesn't look like Gary
yeah,
to me.
you've been called many names. Nice to see you. I don't think it's been Gary lately?
Prettier looking than most Garys I know. Please, state your name for the record and proceed.
My name's Patricia Millen, and I am the Chief Judge of the Workers' Compensation Court of Appeals. Judge Hall is one of my colleagues, and he has been instrumental in assisting me with the budget and with certain preliminary matters. Mr. Chairman, I thought I'd give you a little bit of a background on our court, and then I would be happy to answer any questions.
Please proceed.
Our court consists of 5 judges who have statewide authority to review workers' compensation cases decided by compensation judges at the Office of Administrative Hearings. Our court consists of 5 staff attorneys, 2 full-time staff, support staff, and 2 part-time support staff. I think it's important to note 3 things. 100% of our funding comes through the Special Compensation Fund. 95% of our funding goes for salary and rent. And third, we have retained a base budget since 2009 of $1.7 million. So I am asking today for a one-time appropriation of $210,000. $100,000 is to pay for the retirement payouts that do not come out of our regular payroll. I have, as of January, just with one judge's retirement, already paid out $64,000. The other appropriation of that one-time appropriation is for $110,000, and that is to increase our core, or that would be for the increase for 2014 to cover our IT system analysis and implementation to interact with 3 agencies. One is the Department of Labor and Industry, the second is the Office of Administrative Hearings, and the third is the Minnesota Supreme Court. All initial claims, as you know, are filed with the Department of Labor and Industry, and they maintain an imaged database of all workers' compensation claims filed for all cases from beginning to end. If a case gets contested, it goes to the Office of Administrative Hearings, and then the parties after that hearing have a right to appeal from the Office of Administrative Hearings to the Workers' Compensation Court of Appeals. In some limited situations, an appeal will be taken directly from that Department of Labor and Industry to our court at the appellate level. Now, if our court affirms an Office of Administrative Hearings decision, the case documents are returned from my court to the Department of Labor and Industry for inclusion in their database. And sometimes these cases are sent back to the Office of Administrative Hearings on a remand, and then the documents, the exhibits, and the transcript are returned from my court to the Office of Administrative Hearings. The parties have a right to appeal any of our decisions directly to the Minnesota Supreme Court. And in that circumstance, the appeal crosses over from the executive branch into the judicial system, and we must comply with all requirements in the judicial system. And why this is important, it goes back to my request for the one-time appropriation. The Department of Labor and Industry currently images and stores electronically all documents relating to workers' compensation cases except exhibits and transcripts. And that is the bulk of the documents that we retain, review, and make decisions on at the appellate level. Second, the Office of Administrative Hearings has developed a new case management system during the past year. I am told they are in stage 4 of 5 on the validation process, and there will be a full implementation of that system as they anticipate in the year 2014. Whatever changes our court will need to make to conform to these demands of the new system will need to be made within 2014. And right now, we receive everything by paper. But of course, this will change. The Supreme Court has also announced a change in plans for the rollout of the e-court Minnesota, and we will be mandated to comply with electronic document services, filings, transmissions requirements. Whatever they request, we will do. So on that note, I am seeking a one-time appropriation for an IT systems analysis and implementation to interact with these 3 agencies. I also anticipate that to keep up with these agencies in the social media and age of technology, we will be looking at e-filing and e-servicing ourselves, although at this point I have neither the funding nor the capability to do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions for the testifier?
Thank you.
Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Representative Mahoney.
At this particular time, I know we have 2 more testifiers, but while I don't know who they are, but if you'd call them down, but I would like to move to, if there's no objection, I'd like to move an amendment that would deal with the expedited rulemaking.
Please, move your amendment.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, on page 25, are there any objections? Because this did not meet the 24-hour rule.
Okay.
Okay.
Any objections to the amendment coming forward here? It doesn't look like it.
Page 25, line 13, delete exempt from the, and insert subject to expedited, and delete provisions and insert under.
And if I might ask Ms. Newman to read.
Does that work?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair and members, the amendment is on page 25, line 13. Delete exempt from the and insert subject to expedited, and then delete provisions and insert under.
Provisions of should be.
Yes, thank you.
One more time, please.
The second part of the amendment is delete provisions of and insert under. So that sentence would read, the procedures and operations used by the commissioners are subject to expedited rulemaking under Chapter 14.
Sounds right. Any questions on the amendment as you heard it? Commissioner, do you have a... Okay. Commissioner Stevens. Will you introduce yourself for the record again, please? And
Commissioner Katie Clark-Sieben with DEED. Mr. Chair, members, I'd just like to point out one point of clarification. If we do move forward with an expedited rulemaking process, that is an 18-month process, so the Minnesota Job Creation Fund would be delayed as far as how long it would take to be up and running for an 18-month period, and the regular rulemaking process is 2 years.
Chair?
Representative Mahoney.
I think this amendment should go on, and we can discuss it between now and the time this comes back in front of the committee.
Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, being new, I'll plead a little ignorance here, but if we're using an expedited rule process, okay, I'm a FIAD teacher, and I used to do this to my students. Do we need another bill, Representative Mahoney, to change the expedited rulemaking process so we can actually expedite things a little bit more?
You know, it's going to be a long session next year.
Representative Mahoney, I'd take your point, Representative Fabian, but I don't know what I can do about it right now.
You're the chair.
Yeah. Well, they didn't give me a crown yet. Yeah, Representative Newton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioner. Under the expedited procedure, is that up to 18 months? You can do it any time up to 18 months, right?
We have clarification on that, Commissioner Stevens.
It doesn't mean you have to wait 18 months.
There might be light in this tunnel here. Please introduce yourself again.
Mr. Chair, Kevin McKinnon, Director of Economic Development at DEED. The time frame to complete the rulemaking process can vary. We believe it's between a year and 2 years, depending on the complexity of the program. On the expedited side, we're very hopeful that it's 18 months. Just as an example, with our military loan program that we just released a couple of years ago, it took 18 months to do the rulemaking on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Hugel.
Mr. Chair, following up with Representative Newton, okay, but it doesn't have to take 18 months. You could complete it in substantially less time, couldn't you? I mean, why the hard and fast rule of 18 months here?
Representative Mahoney is wanting to answer here. Please, Representative Mahoney.
Expedited rulemaking is a process, and it will take what it's going to take. But the department could easily, if they wanted to work extra hard, come back with a set of rules within a couple of weeks. And then we would actually be able to pass it and put it into place for them. We're the legislature. We can do almost anything except ask for a crown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That clarifies things immensely.
Thank you. Sounds like we're getting closer to the meaning of the word expedited anyway. I guess we're done here. Thank you. Okay. Still got the amendment in front of us. Any further discussion on the amendment? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Amendment adopted.
And Mr. Chair, I think there was a couple other people that wanted to testify one way or the other on this bill. I hope it's in favor. Don't know, though.
If I have Tim Dickey and Stephen Mike, Midwest Special Service.
You can grab this.
Gentlemen, please identify yourselves in the record and proceed.
My name is Stephen Mike, M-I-K-E, and I own Wabasha Deli. Thank you for letting us testify today, witness.
Tim Dickey, I'm the Vice President of Programs with Midwest Special Services.
Jamal Thomas, I worked with both of the employers.
And please, whoever's going to talk next, you got to say who you are.
Okay, I'm Tim Dickey. I'm the Vice President of Program Services at Midwest Special Services, located in Representative Mahoney's legislative district. And on behalf of the Minnesota Organization for Habilitation and Rehabilitation, also known as MORE, I'm here today to testify in regards to House File 729, the Governor's Job and Economic Development Budget Bill. MORE is a new organization that includes 20-plus community rehabilitation providers throughout the state, which provide employment, training, and job placement support for Minnesotans with disabilities. And these providers participate in highly effective outcome-based extended employment programs, or the extended employment program, also known as EE Basic, which is part of the Department of Employment and Economic Development's Division of Vocational Rehabilitation Services. Members of MORE wish to express our gratitude for the Governor for not further reducing funding for the EE Basic program. However, I'm here today to encourage you to consider an increase in funding to strengthen the EE program and support additional EE services for unserved and underserved individuals with disabilities. Here are several reasons which support this request. People with disabilities currently have nearly a 50% lower rate of participation in the labor force. Since 2008, EE Basic funding and the provider rate for EE Basic have not been increased. Meanwhile, the cost of services, according to the Consumer Price Index, has increased 8.9%. DEED has identified unserved and underserved populations with no access to EE services. Rather than creating access, choice, and quality for Minnesotans who seek employment, these factors have created an employment inequity and gap which threatens individuals to provide for themselves, further drains organizational resources, and prevents employers from tapping into a vital pool of employees to meet current and upcoming vacancies soon to be caused by a wave of retirements. Mr. Chair, you should know that there have been many successes in this results-oriented EE program. Here with me today is an example of that with Midwest Special Services client Jamal Thomas and Stephen Mike from Wabasha Deli, and I'll let them speak for a moment.
Please state your name and proceed.
Mr. Chairman, Stephen Mike. I am the owner of Wabasha Deli, and when I kissed my wife goodbye this morning and asked her to wish me luck, she held out her hand and she said, "Don't bore the committee." So just the facts. Yeah, I know.
Wives can be so rude, eh?
10 years ago, the STEPS program from the public school system came to us, Wabasha Deli, and STEPS stands for Specialized Transition Employment Planning Services. And over the 10 years, we've had 80 students come through the system, and of that 80 students, we've hired 10%. Now, these are challenged kids. I don't look at them as disabilities. I look at them as gifted kids. They've been able to move forward. Some of them have gone on to more, and of the ones that have hired, that have moved on there, I've hired 2 of those people. I'm just going to give you 2 examples. Nick, who has a counting issue, he counts everything without looking at it. He can tell me exactly how many Coke I have on shelf, how many salads I have in the cooler. I put him in charge of inventory. Jamal is an incredibly detail-oriented person. I am very proud to have him on staff. He actually runs the Metro State University educated pallet at night for me. He does a great job, and I want to thank him publicly, and I really believe in this program.
Thank you. Say a word there, Jamal.
All right.
Speak right into the mic. Just identify yourself for the record.
My name is Jamal Thomas, and well, I want to tell you a little bit about my experience working with Wabasha Deli and Midwest Services. Well, they helped me out a lot with, employment, because, without their resources and knowledge, I wouldn't be where I am today. Speaking on that, well, I really wanted it to continue on through present on, so that way other people like me will have an opportunity to do what I did too and be successful, and just as I've been. So with that being said, I'd like to thank everybody for your time. And
Thanks for speaking with us, Jamal.
Mr. Chair, Minnesota's community rehabilitation providers have a proven success record in securing employment, income, and advancement for this critical segment of our state's workforce. But members, if this program could be funded adequately, we can close the employment gap for people with disabilities and have many more success stories like Jamal and Wabasha Deli. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to working with you and this committee over the next couple of months on this very important issue.
Thank all three of you very much. I think that concludes our testimony. Representative Mahoney,
Yes, I know of no one else that wanted to testify, but I can stand ready for any questions that might be.
Anybody else in the audience that wants to testify for or against this bill? Seeing none. Any further questions from the committee? Seeing none.
Mr. Chair.
Move your bill, please.
Mr. Chair, I move House File 729 for possible inclusion to be held over in the committee for the possible jobs and economic development omnibus bill.
And all in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Held over. Thank you. Yeah, you're up, Representative Isaacson.
Killing me, Smalls. Yes. Too long and simple.
Oh, I know it.
Oh yeah, I'm ready. We're ready to go.
Mr. Isaacson, you will understand when you come back after a couple terms, the shorter your bill is, the happier everybody is.
Well, sitting there, 30-page bill, guy.
I'm not giving it only 5 minutes. Yeah.
Representative Isaacson, would you like to move your bill?
No, not yet.
I take it back, Mahoney, or there's only 29.
Right? Remain it over.
As fast as they can make them under. They can make them.
Mr. Chair.
We have one more bill. If people would like to speak, could you please step out? Representative Isaacson, would you care to move your bill for possible inclusion?
I do. I move House File 578 for possible inclusion in the omnibus bill.
Thank you.
And
Please proceed.
Mr. Chair, we have an amendment that was supposed to be added, and when we looked at it when we got here, there was a mistake on the amendment. You're getting something I hope we can agree to as an oral amendment to the amendment, as they accidentally put the nasty line "delete all" in the amendment, which would be a travesty.
This is such a good bill.
Yes. And it's an amazing bill. I'm really excited to be here today.
All right. Could you please explain your amendment?
Sure.
And as I say, you've got about 8 minutes. We may go a few minutes over. If we go too far over, I will have to hand the gavel over to somebody else. So.
Okay. Basically, what the amendment does is it was supposed to be added into the bill right at the very end of the construction. You're going to see there's Article 1. And then there is a second article on mixed martial arts fighting, combative sports. At the end of Article 1, you'll see at line 8.3.35. If I'm off on that, let me know. That's right. We would just include everything on the amendment starting with Section 10 and then renumber the repeal as Section 11. Right? Is that correct? And so that's what it was supposed to do. It came out of the revisor's office incorrect, as it was handed to me.
And then what does your amendment do in terms of, I'm going off the amendment page,
right,
to line 13 through line 20, quickly.
If you go to, on the back side of the amendment, it adds, regarding manufactured homes, and both labor and industry are okay with it. It just has to do with licensing manufactured homes.
So, Representative Isaacson, what your bill does is it allows...
no, the amendment does.
The amendment allows applicants, removes the requirement for an applicant to have 2 years prior experience, and then sets out rules for what he or she would have to do in order to meet that requirement.
Correct. Yes.
Thank you. Are there any questions on the amendment? Any questions? Is the industry in favor of this also?
Yes. Yep. Both industry and the department are in favor.
All right. You've moved your amendment. Any questions? Seeing none. All those in favor of the A01 amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Same sign. You're on your way.
All right.
In your bill, and I think you've got a couple.
I'm going to turn it over to people far smarter than me. And while I do that, I
know them. I wouldn't go that far.
I have delicious chocolate bars for my group, as it is now my second committee. But I didn't want to give it to a strange committee. I'd rather give it to you guys.
While they are, because you have 6 minutes to explain your bill and answer questions, you better get started.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah. Identify yourself for the tape.
My name is Jessica Lumen. I'm Assistant Commissioner at the Department of Labor and Industry. Thank you all very much. This is the department's technical cleanup bill before you, and I'm just going to point out a few highlights while you're having your 2 o'clock snack. What this does is this addresses some clarifications of business definitions. It addresses clarifications in enforcement and licensing and some fees. It extends the amount of time between. So one of the big things that we do at our department is we have examinations for people to get licenses in the trades. Currently, what's happening is that you can take your exam, but then you only have 90 days to get your license. This is extending that to 180 days to get your license. It's clarifying purposes of the definitions in the state building code, which to match both the code and the current statutes. It includes the charter schools in the plan review, which we already do schools, and it includes charter school projects as it was in the definition of schools. And it also clarifies in the Contractor Recovery Fund, a program that we administer at the Department of Labor and Industry, the definition of an owner of a homeowner. So it really is a technical cleanup bill. Happy to answer any questions that you have on any of the pieces of it. And my colleague will go over the pieces that are not related to the Construction Codes and Licensing Division, but are related to the Office of Combative Sports.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm John Rakowski with the Department of Labor and Industry and the unofficial commissioner designee of the Office of Combative Sports, which we have one employee. And when we inherited this program July 1st, we did 2 things. We did a close examination of the budget, which we mentioned earlier is structurally in deficit, and we'll attempt to fix that in our budget bill. And then this bill attempts to clean up, if you will, Chapter 341, because, frankly, it had been left unattended for several years, to put it mildly. This primary purpose of Article 2 is to make these several changes to Chapter 341 in a manner that reflects the practices that were inherited by the Commissioner when the responsibilities of the Combative Sports Commission were transferred to us July 1st. The main one is Section 1, I'll call attention to the first one, and then the last one are some interest. The first one, we make what I call a statutory crosswalk in our construction code and licensing enforcement statute of 326B.081. Right now, if it hasn't happened yet, thanks to the good management that Mr. Gunther said we've been applying to this sport, but you could have some real bad actors get involved with this. And right now, we don't have any recourse to revoke a license, for example. We don't have any enforcement authority. So we're tying the 326B enforcement authority to the Combative Sports Commission. Many of the other sections here are very technical in nature. I'll call your attention to the final one in the interest of brevity. Section 7 deals with the renewal and annual expiration of their licenses. These gentlemen, for the most part, aren't like plumbers and pipe fitters where they get their license on a 2-year cycle. Oftentimes they sign up for their license the day of the fight. And so this proposed amendment states that the license from now on are going to expire December 31st, no matter what, and this is consistent with the inherited practices of the Commission. And I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions on the Department of Labor and Industries technical bill that covers construction codes and combative sports? If you got a question for the Commissioner of Combative Sports, you should ask him now.
Mr. Chair, I renew my motion. House File 578 to be laid over for possible inclusion in the omnibus bill, as amended.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none. All those, well, actually, we don't have to vote for it?
Yep.
Thank you. I'm going to lay this bill over for possible inclusion. Members, before we are done, I do want you to understand, and this is primarily for the newer members, if you call the department because you've got a question on their budget, they will come to your office and explain it, and they are supposed to do that. When I was a freshman, I used to have commissioners and assistant commissioners and finance people in my office all the time. You have that right with your election certificate, and you should take advantage of it. There you go. I'm just giving more work to the commissioners in the back going, oh, God.
Mr. Chair, they've been fabulous so far. Fabulous. So
with that, members, we are in recess until 6 p.m. this evening.